patterns of happiness are frameworks that always work. They are tools and practices that will bring permanent change to your life for better. We're not looking for temporary solutions. We change and transform. We practice what we preach, and we're gonna share it with you here. Be careful, because you can become seriously happier today.
Charlie, thank you for finding time to meet with me finally.
Thank you for having me.
Did you have enough time to recover from your journey to Croatia?
Yeah. I'm well recovered.
To set out the ground for our conversation, Charlie, can you please explain, is there a chance that some people don't have dreams? It's for those who doubt that dreams can be lucid, and it's for those who think that they don't have dreams.
It's almost impossible. The only way to stop the human brain from dreaming is major head trauma. So if you have a stroke, or if you had like a really bad car accident with a lot of head trauma, you might stop dreaming or have reduced dreaming for a few months afterwards. But after a few months, the dreams would come back. So everybody is dreaming every single night. Based on an 8-hour sleep cycle, they'll have about 5 dream periods a night, multiple dreams in each dream period. So the question isn't, do I dream? It's, do I remember my dreams?
Mm-hmm. Why people don't remember their dreams? What's the reason for that? Some people are like 60 years old and they say, I've never had a dream in my life. I'm just wondering why they have lived all of their life and have never remembered anything.
I think simply because they've never tried. It's as simple as that. You know, I often meet these people. They're often around 60, late 60s. And they hear me presenting on the neuroscience of dreaming and say, no, I don't dream. I've lived 60 years, I do not dream. And this happens about maybe once a month. I'll meet someone like this who really wants to test the theory. And I say, okay, please test my theory. I'm confident in these techniques. So tonight, as you fall asleep, I want you to set a strong intention to remember your dreams. When did you last do that? And they say, well, no, I don't try and remember my dreams because I don't dream. And I say, okay, so tonight, set an intention to remember your dreams. Either just before bed, sit on the edge of your bed and just say, right, tonight, I'm going to test this guy. Let's see if Charlie knows what he's talking about. I'm going to remember my dreams. That can work for some people. Even better is if they go into the hypnagogic state, which is that transitional state of mind as you're falling asleep, which is a natural state of hypnosis, and implant a hypnotic suggestion to remember their dreams, such as, tonight, I remember my dreams. I have excellent dream recall. And this is what listeners and watchers of your podcast can do as they fall asleep tonight. The Tibetan tradition would say to do that 21 times as you fall asleep. If you do that, there's a very high chance that you will remember your dreams upon awakening. It's not, 100%, but many people find that if you do that for 7 days in a row, then it's almost 100% success rate.
Just a quick question. Do they need to do this aloud, like, I want to see a dream, or it can be just as an intention? You can do it.
Yeah, because you're falling asleep, you're doing it in your mind as you fall asleep, yeah.
In the book, you say that you live in a Buddhist community, is it right?
Yeah, I just moved out. I moved out a year ago. So I now live in an apartment. Like, I can see the Buddhist center. I can see the roof. I live about 150 meters away. Living there for almost 8 years. I got married, even though I was living there with my fiance. We got married, we decided to move out, and I looked at all these apartments in London. They were all so expensive because London's such an expensive place to live. And then we gave up. And then just when we gave up, this one more alert came through in the email saying showing this apartment. And it was, on the same road, not only on the same road, but like 2 doors down, a few buildings away. And we thought, oh, let's go and see it. It's so close. And we went to see it. We loved it. And I ended up buying it. So yeah, now I live in the outer mandala rather than the inner mandala, but I'm still within the mandala.
What does it imply that you're within the mandala? Does it have any influence on your routine, on your daily agenda?
Does it affect if you're talking energetic, I was kind of joking about the mandala, but if you're talking energetically, then yes. You're still within the sphere of influence of the mandala. You're still within the energetic space of the Buddhist center. And the Buddhist center has had a lot of things done to it, a lot of ceremonies done there, a lot of enlightened people who've been there. And they do a lot of blessing to the actual building. itself and the surrounding area to, they say, pacify the elementals, which I guess means, you know, spreading good vibes and creating an energetic framework in the space. So I think maybe I'm still within the sphere of that influence. But also, because you live so close to the Buddhist center, what does it mean? It means I don't forget about Buddhism. It means every day I walk past it. It means at least once a week I'll go down there and do one of the practices, or to go and meet someone there. Or yeah, so I would feel very different if I lived, you know, 20 miles away. I think there's some, because I'm connected to the lineage. It's nothing, I don't think it's anything special about Buddhism. It's something special about spirituality. It's like a Christian living near a church would probably feel more connected. I'm a Buddhist, so I feel more connected to the Buddhist center.
How is your lineage connected with lucid dreaming and Buddhism in general? Because I remember in your book, you started saying that you had your first lucid dreams when you were around 17. So as far as I understand, you weren't a Buddhist at that time.
Mm.
And are these two different careers, like becoming a lucid dreamer and the teacher of lucid dreaming and being a Buddhist?
Good point. So I actually had my first lucid dreams earlier than that, but I taught myself to lucid dream intentionally when I was, 16, 17. And as soon as you start reading lucid dreaming books, as I did, they all mention that Tibetan Buddhism has this tradition called dream yoga, with the Tibetan term is milam naljo, which means, like yoga of the dream. So if you read a lucid dreaming book, you're probably going to hear that mentioned. So it was in my mind. And at the same time, at 17, I was also reading books about Buddhism because I was getting interested in that. But I first learned lucid dreaming separate from the Buddhist path. I wasn't taught dream yoga techniques. I hadn't gone to any dream yoga workshops or anything like that. So yeah, I learned lucid dreaming separately, first of all, and just used it for like sex and skateboarding and just hedonism because I was 17. So that sounded good at the time. And then when I got into Buddhism properly when I was 19, then I started exploring further these dream yoga practices, which, you know, the practice of becoming lucid was very similar actually. A lot of the Western techniques are actually based on the Tibetan ones, whether they know it or not, or whether it's just the human brain 1,000 years ago is similar to the human brain now. So similar techniques work in the same way. But I learned some of those techniques, and crucially, it was learning about what to do when you're lucid. So people want to learn all these fancy dream yoga techniques of falling asleep, imagining you're the deity and all these kind of things. But actually the dream yoga starts once you're lucid. In the lucid dream, do you use it for spiritual practice? Or do you use it for just flying about, having sex with movie stars, this kind of thing? So it was mainly that changed when I got into Buddhism. People telling me to do things like meditate in the lucid dream, say mantras in the lucid dream, transform yourself into the deity in the lucid dream. That stuff was new. I hadn't come across that. And soon I found out that there was a long history, you know, at least 1,000 years that lucid dreaming had been practiced within Tibetan Buddhism. And before that, in Buddhism itself, you know, there's a quote from the historical Buddha 2,500 years ago where he tells his monks and nuns to fall asleep in a state of mindfulness. Now, he's not using the term lucidity here, but to fall asleep in a state of mindfulness feels like the first kind of instruction there about lucid dreaming. And of course, if you do enough meditation and if you're a fully enlightened being like the Buddha was, it's said that once you're fully enlightened, like all your dreams are lucid. You either don't dream, you're just in the clear light state all night, or any dreams you have are either prophetic dreams or they're lucid dreams. So was Buddha a lucid dreamer? Definitely. But it seems that it was the Tibetan Buddhist lineages that really explored lucid dreaming more fully. For example, like in Zen Buddhism, you don't have, there may be dream practices, but you don't have such a kind of a catalog of the dream practices. Whereas Tibetan Buddhism is all about dream and death. Those are two very strong aspects.
I guess living in a community where people actually nurture this and support it, and maybe even share in the morning whether they had lucid dreams or not. I mean, I think it might be very helpful.
Yeah, that was kind of cool, like being able to, in the mornings, you know, having breakfast with Lama Zangma, who's the woman who runs the Buddhist center, and she's done like 10 years retreats. She's done all the dream yoga practices. And, not often, but maybe once a month, I'd come down to breakfast and I'd say, "Oh, Lama, I just had this dream." And she might comment on it. Often she'd just say, "Forget it." Because that's the job of the Lama, is if they see any ego coming in, any pride at your achievement, boom, they'll just smash you. And I'm thankful for that. But often too, she would say, "Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe this, maybe that." Yeah, it was cool. But people think of living in a Buddhist center, they think that everyone's like enlightened who lives in a Buddhist center. The opposite. And we're all totally fucked up. That's why we're living in a Buddhist center. Like, the people who are really peaceful and zen out, they don't need to live in a Buddhist center. But my mind's so crazy, I had to live there to try and calm my mind. So it's not quite as zen as you would think. But yes, you are surrounded by people who most of whom do Buddhist practice. So it's not weird. It's something you can talk about. It's something that you're encouraged to do. As Lama told me, if you can't meditate living in a Buddhist center, you can't meditate anywhere.
I've checked your site, and I know that you do the workshop, lucid dreaming workshops. What does it consist of? I mean, what I imagine it is like, it's like people getting together and like sleeping together, or how does it go?
Yeah, so if you go on my website, anything that says workshop is like a seminar. So, you go and you learn the lucid dreaming techniques. Maybe we do some lying down practice, but you're kind of rehearsing for the nighttime, right? Whereas anything on the website that says retreat, those are the ones that are really fun, where yes, during the day we do all the workshop stuff, we learn the techniques, we do some yoga, we do meditation, but then at nighttime, people sleep in their rooms from 10:30 till 3:30. Well, this is optional if they want. Sleep in their room from 10:30 till 3:30. Then at 3:30 in the morning, they wake up and they move into the shrine area where they have bed number 2. So you have 2 beds, one in your bedroom and one in the shrine room. And then from 3:30 onwards, I then guide people into sleep with a certain technique. And then an hour and a half later, I wake them up with the Tibetan singing bowls very gently. And everyone sits up, they're writing down their dreams, writing down their lucidity, whatever has happened. And then I guide them back into sleep for another hour and a half. Then I wake them back up and I guide them back into sleep. So this is a really old technique you find in Tibetan Buddhism as well as you find in the Toltec Mexican practices, which is essentially if you fall asleep once and you wake up once, you have one chance to remember your dreams, one chance at lucidity, one chance at whatever. If some crazy guy wakes you 4 times a night, you've just quadrupled your chances of success. So that's essentially what we're doing. I'm not saying people sleep like that every night, but just for the period of the 4-day retreat, it's like lucid dreaming boot camp. You go really intensely into the practice. Mm-hmm. And when people leave, maybe once a week, they sleep like that. They wake several times, or once every 2 weeks, something like that. But yeah, that's really my kind of flagship retreat, because I don't think there's anyone else in the world who does those. I know some other lucid dreaming people, they wake you like once, but I'm talking 4 times a night, 4 nights in a row. So I think I'm unique in that.
And
but I think it's just because I'm younger. I think when I get older, I'll be like, fuck that, man. I'm too tired for this. When I have kids, I'll be like, fuck that. But right now, I'm young and I have the energy to do it. So,
yeah, 4 times is a lot. But at the same time, every week, I take the night shift looking after my daughter. And like yesterday, I woke up at least 7 times. Now I started thinking, maybe I should use it as an opportunity for lucid dreaming as well. It could work.
You could. I mean, I'll tell you, sometimes I've been at workshops and someone will ask that question and you'll see the women in the room go, and they just tense up as if like, no, you don't know the pain. You cannot use this for lucid dreaming. You're so stressed, all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. If you could use it for lucid dreaming, go for it. Yes, it is a technique, but also some people say they're so sleep deprived during that time where they're waking up for their kids. Lucid dreaming is out the window anyway. So yeah, if you can use it, use it. If not, just concentrate on getting some sleep. And then when your daughter's through this period and when she's a little bit older and she's sleeping, then yeah.
I loved your book. I mean, there is no water in the good sense. I mean, you do not waste time with long stories. You just get into it. You give very clear techniques. And one of them, I shared it with many friends of mine, and it worked for them. The shadow part. I have never looked at the nightmares and at the whole concept of having this difficult, emotionally hard dreams as something I could work with. So you have completely shifted my perspective, and I wouldn't say that I'm such a successful lucid dreamer. I had only a couple of lucid dreams that I remember, but two of them were the ones where I had a chance to use the technique to give a hug to my greatest fears. And it was so transforming for me. So for this, I'm forever grateful for you, for sure. And I shared it with a couple of friends of mine who used it as well. And they said that it's amazing because it's actually an absolutely different perspective. You're not running from the nightmares. You're actually going into them.
Yeah.
And I understand the concept in life when you say, okay, I feel sad or I feel anger. I'm not running to suppress it. I'm looking into it. But doing the same in the dream, whoa, that was incredible.
I'm glad that you found that helpful. This concept is based on the idea that everything in the lucid dream is a psychological representation of yourself. You know, if you're having a lucid dream and your father appears, it's not your dad. It's your psychological representation of your dad. If you meet, you know, a dog in the lucid dream, it's not a dog. It's your psychological representation of a dog, which for some people might represent fear because they're scared of dogs. Other people, it might represent love because they love dogs. You know, it's very obvious psychology what's going on in the lucid dream. But what's not so obvious is that if your interactions with those elements of the lucid dream affect your mind, of course they do. So if you go into a lucid dream and something scary appears and you run from it, you are further creating a habit of running from your fear. And we know that in a lucid dream, we're creating neural pathways because once the prefrontal cortex is activated, the brain thinks you're awake. It doesn't think you're having a lucid dream, it thinks you're awake. So you are then perpetuating a fear-based paradigm of I move away from what scares me. Whereas if you're in a lucid dream, you become lucid and you see something scary like a monster or something, you think, hang on, my body's asleep in bed. This is all a three-dimensional hallucination of my own mind. So that monster must represent something I'm scared of. It must represent some monstrous part of me, a traumatized part of me, a fearful part of me, a part of me that has become split off. So hang on, if I can show love to that thing rather than fight it, if I can literally hug it or say kind things to it or say, how can I help you? You know, how can I integrate this fear? Then not only are you integrating the fear of the dream and helping cure yourself from the nightmare, but also you're creating a neurological habit in the brain that says, I move towards fear. I do not let fear rule me. And that's affecting your waking state. This is the cool thing about lucid dreaming. If you can go into the lucid dream and you can embrace your demons, if you can show love to your zombies, if you can, you know, hug your monsters, not only do you get this rush in the lucid dream that, wow, I'm kind of embracing my fear, I'm doing the scariest thing, but you're creating these neural pathways that mean in the waking state, the next time someone's bullying you, like your boss is bullying you at work, or the next time you see something on the street where there's an injustice, or the next time you're feeling the trauma from childhood, from the bullying that happened at school, you're more likely to move towards that rather than run away from it, and to actively engage that fear. And that makes us more powerful human beings. It makes us more human. And you can see this, you know, anyone listening, you think, oh, this is bullshit. Here's the cool thing about lucid dreaming. You can test it. When I heard the things about athletes getting better at sports by training in their lucid dreams, I thought it was bullshit. So I went in the lucid dream and I trained, and I found myself getting better at sports in the waking state. When I heard this thing about embracing your monsters in the lucid dream, I thought it was bullshit. So I went in there and embraced the monster, and I woke up buzzing with energy and feeling this like deep happiness for 2 days afterwards. You can feel it. So anyone listening to this who thinks it's bullshit, try it. Don't believe me, try it.
It is so powerful. I had this dream about someone from my past, an authority. I was periodically talking to this person inside of me, like justifying myself, or I don't know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in the dream, I have finally understood that it's not actually her talking to me. It's like me, a part of my brain.
Yes.
It's a treasure that
A
you.
part of your brain that has been symbolized by that person. So it's like when people dream and they see the bully from school and they think, why does that bully from school always come into my dreams? I haven't seen that person for 20 years. I don't care about that person anymore. I'm not a child anymore. So yeah, but they are a symbol of disempowerment, or they are a symbol of fear. And that's the cool thing about dreams, it's working with symbols. But in the lucid dream, we can intentionally call that symbol. So, you know, if the bully from school was called Alex or something, you get lucid and call for Alex to come into the dream. And that symbolic representation of fear will arrive. And you can dialogue with it. You can embrace it. You can, you know, dissolve it. And that'll have a very powerful effect on the mind. And this is why lucid dreaming is being seen as such a powerful intervention in therapy. You know, I gave a talk at the Ministry of Defense 3 weeks ago now. I mean, this is insane. The science is so strong now for lucid dreaming being a treatment for nightmares that they're getting people like me going into the Ministry of Defense to talk to the colonels and the generals in the armed forces and the people from the Ministry of Defense, so that's MI5, MI6, telling them about lucid dreaming. This is insane. You know, 10 years ago, you couldn't even mention lucid dreaming in somewhere like the Ministry of Defense. Now it's become so verified that they're actually using it as a way to treat soldiers who come back from wars and have bad nightmares.
Amazing.
So this stuff is real.
I've checked your Instagram, and there were a couple of pictures of you in MMA fighting. I wanted to ask you, is it a part of your shadow? How do you see it? Because I know some Buddhists, or at least people who think they're Buddhists, who say that this is still some violence and this is reinforcement of violence.
Good question. So first of all, there's a long tradition of Buddhism and martial arts. So I think you're right, say people who think they're Buddhists think there's a conflict. Actual Buddhists, no, the Shaolin monks. I mean, the most famous Buddhist monks in the world were the pioneers of Kung Fu. And you see these guys training and fighting. This is serious. This is not like Jackie Chan movies. This is serious combat, right? And the Shaolin Kung Fu, well, there's a lot of different histories. One of the histories is that the Shaolin Kung Fu method was developed to protect the Buddhist temples, because you had a lot of gold-plated Buddhas, right? And a lot of wealth in these temples because of people giving offerings and stuff. So the warlords would attack the temple. They tell the monks they can't do anything, so let's steal all the golden Buddhas and melt them down and get all the money. So this was developed that we needed a way to kind of protect the temples. And one of the histories is that Shaolin Kung Fu was developed as a way for this to happen. So first of all, there's a long history between martial arts and Buddhism. Number two, there's a big difference between the art of combat and violence. So for example, the kickboxing competitions I do, it is actually kickboxing, not MMA. So there are big gloves, 16-ounce gloves, you know, you have a head guard, you have feet guards, all this kind of stuff. There's a big difference between practicing the art of combat, which I do find is a meditative thing to do, and fighting. You know, I haven't had a fight on the street, for, my God, since I was a teenager. But actually, that's not true. I did almost have one just after Brexit. Brexit happened, weirdly, man, in London, 2 weeks after Brexit. Everyone was saying racist things, was saying homophobic things. It was as if the censor was just taken off people's mouths and they said what they liked. So actually, there was a gay guy being abused in the park by this drunk guy, and I helped that guy. But there was actually no need for violence. There was just a need for someone with the confidence to prevent this unjust thing from happening. But anyway, in a kickboxing competition, you're signing a contract with someone. You're saying, okay, you practice martial arts, I practice martial arts. Just like a tennis player has to enter tennis competitions to see how good they are at tennis, martial artists, I believe, need to enter martial arts competitions to see how good they are. Because otherwise, you're just hitting a bag. You know, as Bruce Lee said, the bag doesn't hit back. You know, so we need to test this. So we go into situations that test our combat skills. And we say, okay, you cover your head in a pillow. I'll cover my head in a pillow. We'll put pillows on our hands, pillows on our feet, and we'll see how many times I can hit you without you hitting me. And then we'll count up the points at the end. I see no problem in that. I see no conflict in Buddhist practice. I feel no kind of paradox of like, oh, how can I be fighting and be a Buddhist at all? Other people may have different views, but I'd ask them to check the history of Buddhism before they make that judgment. And also, at a meditative point of view, if you want to see how your mind is, you know, we need to test our mind of meditation too. And how do we test the mind of meditation? Okay, go into a ring with a stranger and have a martial arts competition. Then you're going to see how still your mind is. You know, do you respond with violence? Do you respond with aggression? You know, the way to win a martial arts competition is to be able to fight someone without being in fight or flight. You know, there's fight or flight and rest and digest, right? The two different nervous systems. And if you can be in a competition, a martial arts competition, and stay in rest and digest and not be in fight or flight, that's the way you can win. The moment you get into fight or flight and then you're aggressive, you're going to lose because you're not mindful that the meditation, the mind is gone. So I think also it's a very good test for our meditation to see, can we stay calm? Can we move without aggression? Can we practice martial arts without wanting to hurt the person? You know, before I enter a competition, I literally pray by the side of the ring, and I pray that may me and the person I'm fighting be free from injury and free from pain. And may we both give the best display of our martial arts capacity possible. That's the prayer.
Great point.
Sorry, that was a long answer, but that's something.
No, that's amazing, because you're also changing the whole view, the whole perspective of the need, of necessity for martial arts. I totally agree with you that there has to be a place to check all the like meditative skills we acquire. Yeah. When my baby was born, for example, that's the first time when I realized why I was doing different meditations really calm or trying to stay as calm as possible. That was a really hard exam at that time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, a really hard exam. Yeah.
What is your current daily agenda for meditation and preparations for lucid dreaming?
Okay.
And do you actually set the alarm clock at night still, or you just already have enough skills not to do that?
No, not at all. I'm not a natural lucid dreamer. So unless I do the lucid dreaming practices, I don't have lucid dreams. One of the reasons, well, I might have a few, but not regular, right? One of the reasons that I started doing these 4-day intensive retreats, you know, where I wake everyone up during the night, is so that I have time for practice. I just created my ideal retreat schedule. And I said, well, look, maybe other people want to do it. And then 50 people sign up and do it with me. So actually, most of my practice is done on retreats. When I get home after a 4-day retreat, the last thing I want to do is to set my alarm and do stuff. You know, I want to go out to pizza and drink a beer and just be normal. So weirdly, I have the least amount of lucid dreams in my bed, in my bedroom, the least. The most amount of lucid dreams are when I'm traveling in hotel rooms, running retreats, because in my bed, I feel so kind of safe that I just sleep really deep. You know, that's where I get my restorative sleep. Whereas when I'm traveling, when I'm teaching, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm on duty. Let's do the practice now. As far as kind of meditation routine, I don't have a daily routine. I have a weekly. So I have a certain amount of hours per week that I try and do. So sometimes that means on Sunday I have to do a lot of meditation because I realize, oh no, I've got 4 hours left to do.
Then I will not be pushing myself too hard.
You've got a baby, like once you got a baby, just like you said, that can be your meditation. Like, of course, if you can get formal meditation, brilliant. Just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. You know, use an app, use Headspace or something that will help you get these little 5-minute chunks. They all add up. It's like when people say they don't have time to go to the gym, and I say, do 100 press-ups a day. If you do 100 press-ups a day for 1 month, your body will change, undoubtedly. And they say, how do I do 100 press-ups a day? You do 20 in the morning, you do 20 at lunch, you do 20 before bed, you know, and you build up to 100. And it's exactly the same with meditation. But you with your baby, man, I mean, every day must be the you know, strengthening your muscles of mind and your patience and your compassion. So yeah, give yourself a break on that, man. It sounds like you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Charlie. How do you look at different Palo Santo, for example, or special teas, or I have recently tried a medicine for lucid dreaming. I forgot how it is called. It starts with A, I think. Okay, doesn't matter. So I tried it, and I had lucid dreaming. I did, but I also had such an incredible rash in all the inappropriate places.
Oh no.
I had a very strange hangover. Galantamine, sorry, galantamine.
Oh, galantamine. Okay, I've got very strong views on galantamine. Okay.
Yeah, I had such a hangover. I was kind of in a place where I was thinking, and then with time would pass, and I was just keeping moments, and I wasn't really present to what was happening. It happened to me. My friends tried it, and it was somehow good for them. They didn't experience what I experienced, but I decided that maybe galantamine is not my thing for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. You know, galantamine is an anti-Alzheimer's drug. It's what people take when they have dementia, they have Alzheimer's, because it increases blood flow to the memory centers of the brain. If you take it when you don't have Alzheimer's or dementia, and if the thing you're trying to remember before bed is, I'm going to have a lucid dream, I'm going to know when I'm dreaming, then it can help with that. So you still have to have the intention, as you know. I'd say this, you know, would we take a pill to meditate? And most people, the answer is no. Lucid dreaming is a form of meditation. In fact, in many ways, it's a higher form of meditation. In Tibetan Buddhist view, it's actually a higher form than waking meditation. So I'd be very careful popping a pill before meditation. However, there's a very strong placebo effect. So I think a lot of the herbal things, like when people take mugwort and these kind of dream teas they get and stuff like that, maybe they have nothing psychoactive in them. But if you can create a little ritual around, you know, taking the herb or having the herbal tea before bed, that ritual will boost the placebo effect. And the placebo effect is so powerful that we know in studies, even if you tell someone it's the placebo, it still works. So it doesn't matter if they think it doesn't work. Just the act of kind of taking the tea or taking the pill can work. So the herbal things, the vitamin-based things like B vitamin 6, B vitamin 12, magnesium before bed, those things are good for your body. You know, especially if, like me, if you're a vegetarian, you need those vitamins. So if we know that those vitamins help with dream recall, I think that's fine to take, you know, herbal-based things, vitamin-based things. But when they're kind of medicines, things like galantamine or like really heavy chemicals, I don't know, man. I think it's like steroids. You know, steroids in the gym. It's like, okay, if you take steroids, you've still got to work out. You've still got to pump weights. You still got to lift weights, but your muscle's going to grow much faster. Like galantamine, if you take galantamine, you've still got to do the lucid dreaming practices, but it's going to manifest much quicker. But just like steroids, there are all these side effects, as you discussed, things with the rash. I mean, the rash I haven't heard of before, but the hangover, galantamine hangover is a whole thing. You hear people talking on the forums. The next day they feel groggy, they feel like they've had beers before bed. So, you know, this is, yeah, I'd say if you wouldn't use steroids in the gym, don't use galantamine.
Thank you. I will know. I agree. You made the
no,
point.
but you got to try it, man. Like I tried it too. I've tried it like 5 or 6 times. It's important to have an opinion on it. But yeah, I got a very strong message. Actually, from the dreamer, I got a strong message. Like it actually told me, this is bullshit. Don't use it. You are vandalizing your spiritual practice. I got a very, very strong message from the dream saying, don't use this stuff. But maybe that was just for me. I don't know.
Okay. I was wondering, is there any proof of how we can influence others through our lucid dreams? I mean, are there any proofs maybe during the workshops or maybe some research that you have read that people, for example, left a message for someone in their dreams and that somehow influenced the other person?
Yeah, there's no scientific research on that. No. I mean, that's way outside science. But based on 11 years of teaching workshops and retreats in more than 25 countries, yeah, I've heard way too many stories not to believe some of them. Sometimes it's coincidence, people want to believe it, but I can say like over 10, maybe 10, 11, 12 stories where I've been told by someone I trust, you know, and they're not trying to impress me. There's too much detail in what they're saying. And you then hear the other person, there's too much detail. And you realize, fuck, man, that actually happened. One of them, either it's a psychic connection through the lucid dream, or maybe some part of their consciousness actually entered their lucid dream. I can't explain it. but I know I've seen too many of those things for it to be not true. I think it's more rare than people think. People like to think it's, oh yeah, we can enter people's dreams. Yeah, it's like, no, you can't. It's very, very rare. Sorry, not no, you can't. It's sometimes you can, but it's very, very rare.
Okay.
So maybe like out of 100 times, like if we have a dream together, like tonight, I might dream about you because we've done this podcast together. It doesn't mean that you were in my dream. It just means we had the same daytime experience. So maybe you'll dream about me tonight. So when people say that and they call it a shared dream, I've got to call bullshit. The reason I call bullshit is not because I'm a cynic and I don't believe it's possible. It's because I do believe it's possible. So because I do believe it's possible, and I would really love for us to get verified scientific proof that it's possible, I think we need to be very rigorous in what we say is definitely a shared dream and what is just a coincidence. So it's because I do believe, not because I don't believe. Yeah, the Buddhist view though, if you want the Buddhist view, they say, yeah, it's totally possible. Because in the dream state, you have 7 times the power of consciousness. So imagine if you had 700% more consciousness right now. You would be psychic, you could levitate, you could do all these things that we can do in the lucid dream. So they say if you were going to communicate with someone psychically, much, much easier to do that in the lucid dream than the waking state. And as far as entering each other's dreams and stuff, they'd say, yeah, it's possible if you set the intention. Like awakened beings, people who've had an enlightenment experience, they can enter people's dreams, they say. You can receive prophecies from the dream, see future events before they happen. All of that is said to be possible in Buddhism. But as far as like scientific research, no, not yet.
Thank you, Charlie. One last question, I promise. We've named and we've discussed 2 things that people could do to try lucid dreaming, like to set up an intention, to repeat their intention for at least 21 times before they go to bed and practice it for 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you shared about the alarm clock and that people can actually wake up in order to remind themselves about their intention. Can you give 2 or maybe 3 or maybe even 1 more tool just for people to have in their backpack?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the things that I often give in talks like this where people want a quick few tips are what I call the 3 Ds. So the first D is dream recall, and we've discussed that. That's falling asleep as you go through the hypnagogic state, reciting over and over again, 21 times if you can. Tonight, I remember my dreams. I have excellent dream recall. Tonight, I remember my dreams. I have excellent dream recall. So falling asleep, reciting that. Number 2, the second D is dream diaries. So writing down your dreams. The reason we write down our dreams is not to interpret them, although if you want to, that's fine. The reason we write them down is to spot patterns. Because as you write down your dreams, let's say you write down your dreams for 7 nights in a row, and then at the end of the 7 nights, you look back, you'll start to see patterns. You'll see, oh, look, I often dream that I'm back at school. Or, wow, yeah, I always dream of my dead grandmother. Or I always have that dream that I'm back in the house where I grew up in. You'll start to see these patterns emerging. That's why we keep the dream diary. And once you see those patterns, simply by being aware of them, you start to create a habit of noticing them. But even better is if you can see a recurring one, let's say you always dream of being back at school. Then the third D is called dream signs. And this is, as you're falling asleep, you can say to yourself, well, if between now and breakfast, I'm back at school, then I must be dreaming. If between now and breakfast, I'm back at school, I must be dreaming. So you create a very strong intention that if you find yourself back at school or the school appears before now and the time you wake up, you must be dreaming. Now that sounds kind of simplistic, but we use that part of the memory all of the time when we say, oh, you know, I owe my friend like £50. I've got to remember to get some money from the cash point. I've got to remember to get money from the cash point. Then we forget about it. But the next time we see an ATM, a cash point, we go, oh, I owe that £50, and we get the money. So it's actually quite a good, it's quite a muscular part of our memory. You know, we use it a lot. So it sounds crazy. How will I remember that in the dream? But you will, because we dream about our habits. If you're in the habit of being scared of spiders, you often dream about scary spiders. If you're in the habit of being worried about that thing at work, you might dream about that thing at work. If you can be in the habit of knowing that these things only happen in my dreams, being back at school, seeing my dead grandmother, whatever it is, then the awareness of that habit will often trigger into the lucid dream. But these are just kind of a few beginner things.
What is the best way to learn about you and to connect with you?
Yeah, if you go to my website, charliemorley.com, that's got all the information about the books and the online courses and stuff like that. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram, again, Charlie Morley Lucid Dreaming. You'll find me. And yeah, the online courses are good. There's a 6-hour one, which is like 6 hours of footage. It's very good. It's without doubt the best lucid dreaming online course on the market. And I say that with full respect to my other friends who've done online courses. But it just is. It's not that I'm so good, but it's the way it's been shot is so good, because it's filmed by these documentary filmmakers. So the quality of the footage is just so high, because they weren't online course makers, they were documentary makers who made an online course for me. So just the quality of the footage is definitely the highest.
It can be found on your site as well, right?
Yeah.
That's great. I
All of everything.
will also go through the course then.
Enjoy it.
Charlie, thank you very much. I had a lot of fun, so
Thanks, man. It was lovely talking to you. I had fun too. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, man. Have a good day.
Have a great day. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.